Hello good people, welcome to the Demented Robot Games YouTube channel that we dedicate to modern board and card games. This is another review video that I'm doing for you guys. My name is Boris, some of you may already know me, and the game that I want to try and show you today, guys, is the game called My Village. Okay, now before I start, I'm just gonna prepare you guys. This is going to be a long video. There's a lot going on in this game, and I just couldn't bring myself to leave some important things out as I was explaining the game. I'm shooting this introduction video after I've already done the demonstration of the actual game, and I know it's going to be long. But bear with me here because we're talking about the game that truly deserves your attention. Okay, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening, so hang in there because it's going to be worth it. Okay, now My Village is a game released by Pegasus Spiele. Okay, this is a game designed by I keep forgetting their names, frankly, Inka and Markus brand, a couple, if I understand correctly, this way or the other. This is a Euro style game in which you will be building your village, a medieval village, and try to make it more successful, wealthy and prosperous than other players. Every player is going to manage their own village, add locations to it, build upon it, and just make it more prosperous than the other guys. Whoever has most points at the end of the game will be the winner. This is a 1 to 4 player game. It has a lot of components, a lot of interesting stuff. So without much further ado, let's dive into the actual demonstration of the game. Okay, boys and girls, we're at the table, and this is how the general setup of this game looks like. Now, before I dive into this little demonstration, I'm just going to tell you that this game has a lot of components in the setup, and also there's a lot going on in this game. So please do not expect me to teach you exactly how to play the game. I'm going to be pretty detailed about this game, but you will have to consult the rulebook if you want to learn how to play, okay? So the purpose of this video is to give you a general idea about how this game plays and feels like and what you can expect from it, okay? So first I'm going to show you the general setup. There are going to be more components in this game, but I did not want to complicate the situation on the table. So this is the general setup. This is what's in the middle of the table when you start playing the game. So let me explain the components. This here is the main board, okay? This is going to be in the center of your table. It has a couple of sections. So this here and this here, that's the cemetery. Over the course of the game, your villagers are going to pass away, and this is where you will place their markers on these grave spaces, okay? This is also a timer in the game because when a certain total number of players, it's these 3 numbers depending on the number of players, when a certain total number of villagers have passed away, that's going to trigger the end game. Then we have this little rat guy here, okay? He will going to be placed in a starting spot depending on the number of players, okay? So over the course of the game, this guy will advance on this track several times at the very least, eventually reaching this rat infestation space. You are going to lose some points when this happens, but I will explain in more detail later. Then you have this steward's house here. You will see that here's the numbers that you need to match in order to trigger this. This is one of the things you can do in the game. It contains these cards here, the stack of cards, and 6 of those are drawn out here to the right of the board. These are customer cards. You'll see how those function later. Then I'm just going to explain all the other cards here. Just generally, you will see in more detail how those work later. So these 5 vertical stacks of cards are trades. You will be able to acquire these cards and place them in a certain area of your village, and then have these trades in your village. These essentially, when they are on your village, they will be able to produce resources for you. You'll see how that works later. These 5 groups of cards here are travel cards. A, B, C, D, and E, all separated into their own stacks by the letter that they are showing in the lower left corner of the card. There will be a guy in your village who will be able to take these cards because he will be going on these travels, and you will be able to earn, your village will be able to earn points that way. These 4 cards here are churches. There are 4 churches total because each player can only have 1 in their village. And then you have these monks. Once you have a church in your village, you will be able to add monks to your church. You'll see how that works later. You have these red cards pertaining to your city council. This is the meeting place. This is the city council place or something like that. 4 different cards. You'll see how that works. And then finally you have your crop fields here. You'll be able to put those, attach them to your village and simply grow crops. You will earn money that way. Okay, so this is just a general setup that you'll see on the table. Over the course of the game, you will be acquiring these cards, all these different kinds of cards, and attaching them to your village to make your village wealthier and more prosperous. You'll see how that works right away. This, boys and girls, is how the game looks like from your own perspective. In this game, in my village, you will be playing your own game because every player is going to have their own village to take care of. So every player will be building their own village, making it more prosperous, more renowned, more wealthy, okay? You will take care of your village and try to make it more successful, basically, than other players. That's going to be expressed in these red points that you can find on some components. That's how you earn points. That's how you will try to win the game. Now, all of these boards are essentially the same as far as the look and layout is concerned. The only difference is going to be these numbers, which are going to be unique for every board. But this is basically how the game may look like for any player, from any player's perspective. So what do we have here? First, of course, the village board that I have just mentioned. This represents your village. It has different locations on it. It has different areas around it where you will be placing these cards that you acquire over the course of the game. You saw at the beginning of this demonstration that in the general setup that you have various cards on the table. Those are cards that are available to be acquired, and as you acquire them, you will be placing them in your village, thus making your village bigger, more prosperous, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, in this village, you will have villagers marked by these black markers here. As long as these black markers are here, it means these villagers are alive. Over the course of the game, you're going to lose them because they are slowly going to pass away. How they are going to pass away? Because the time passes, right? Everything you do in this game will cost you a certain amount of time, which you will keep track of here in this dial. You will see that each space on this dial represents a little cloud with an hourglass on it. So as you perform actions, each of those is going to cost a certain amount of time. So you will be moving this tracker in the clockwise direction. When the clockwise direction passes this bridge, one of your villagers at the end of your turn will be forced to die. Now, I did not place a component here on this bridge, but here is the Grim Reaper who will basically take away one of your villagers. So as long as these guys are here, these areas of your villages are active. But when this guy, for example, passes away, he's not in the village anymore, and this area will not be, you won't be able to upgrade this area anymore as long as you don't replenish this guy. Okay? So that's the main thing. You will be building these areas by placing cards here, acquiring them and making them active in certain parts of your village. And then over the course of the game, you will be able to activate these locations to bring you some sort of benefits or resources or simply points. Okay? That's how you will advance in this game. Now here at the village, you have a couple of locations. This is the main house. It's basically some sort of archive, let's say. Here you will have this guy, okay, who will basically keep track of stories told about your village. Here in the middle of the village you will have the story tree, where you will acquire these story points, which look like this. But these points are not safe. These stories are being told orally, but as long as they are not archived, they are not safe. When the rat infestation comes, you will lose roughly half of these points. So it's up to this guy to travel at least one space here when you trigger this action, and then to get back to the house, take these points with you. Once these points are here at the main house, they will be recorded, archived, and you will keep these points. Otherwise, you will lose them at the end of the game if they are still here, okay? So that's this guy. This here is your money barn. Here you will simply track how much money you have by keeping these little guys, these little black markers here on it. You will gain them and you will spend them as needed. Here you have the school, which is important because when your villagers pass away, you will have to educate new generations to fill their shoes, right? So that's why school is important. When you trigger that, you will be teaching new generations how to do various professions in the village. And finally, of course, you have various areas in your village which signify the prosperity of your village. Okay, so this here, for example, is going to be the traveler. He's going to go on these travels. You can you can travel 5 times because you have 5 kinds of cards, A, B, C, D, and E, and you can have 1 of each. Okay, when you acquire the card, well, it will be on the table in the main supply like this. When you trigger this number and do all of these things that you have to pay, you will then flip the card over and you will place it next to this traveler, and you will get as many points as this card says. So this guy will simply travel. When he does, he will earn points. This other guy is in charge of, the orange guy is in charge of crafts in the village. Each one of these cards represents a craft, and the craft produces some kind of resource. So when you acquire a card by triggering these things, you will then flip it over, place it to the right of this guy, and this card can later be activated by triggering this, and you can produce resources. There's one card that you're allowed to have of all trades, so you can have a maximum of 5 cards here. These cards will bring you no points, but they will produce these valuable resources, and these resources are important because you will pay those resources to be able to do other things in the game, okay? You will keep track of how many of each resource you have when you produce by placing these markers on these little slots here on every one of these cards. This guy here is the merchant. He's in charge of this area here, and that's the marketplace. I told you at the beginning that you have the steward's house on the main board. When you trigger that, you will be able to acquire a certain number of these customer cards, and you will place them here next to this guy. These represent customers that are attracted to your village. They want to buy certain goods in your village. Okay? In order to serve a customer, you need to first trigger the banner and then sell them the resource in question or resources in question. When you serve a customer, in this case, I will have to give one animal to him. I would then flip this card and place it here, and this card at the end of the game will bring me 3 points. I can stack these like this, and these are my points for serving these customers. Okay? Now this area of the village requires no villager, so it works on its own. These are your crop fields. All crop field cards are the same. You can have more of them, and each will bring you money when you harvest. Okay, that's what this is about. So first you will of course acquire the card by triggering this. First you will acquire the card by achieving this, and then later you will flip it over and place it in your crops area, and then when you trigger these cards you will earn money and place your money here. Okay, this is the mayor. I don't know the exact name of this villager, but he's basically a mayor. You will only have 2 cards in this area. This is the meeting place, and this is some kind of town hall or something like that. These cards will bring you certain benefits. I'm not going to get into that. I don't want this video to be too long. And finally, this here is the abbot. He will be responsible for the church. This area contains your church. You will get this church. First of all, you will acquire it by paying these costs, and then you will flip it over and put it like this. You can only have 1 of these. Only 1 church. And once you do have a church in your village, it will bring you points, of course. Then you will acquire monks and attach those to your church. The more monks you have, the more points you will have, as stated in this section of your village. So those are various elements of your village. Those are various areas in which you can earn points. Now, in the next section, I will explain to you guys a little bit more how the game is played, the structure of the turn, and how things are done. The turn structure goes like this. At the beginning of the game, after everybody has received their village tile and put all of their villagers here, then one player is randomly going to be determined, or any other way you want, to be the first player. the first player will receive this little first player token that looks like an open palm of the hand, okay? And then the game may begin. The first player will first, either if this hand looks like this player will then flip that hand to the open palm and place 1 point on the palm of that hand. That's the first thing they will do. The second thing they will do is they will take the dice pool, all dice, and they will roll them, okay? So this is going to be the dice pool for this turn of the game. That's the preparation, you know. Now, everybody, beginning with the first player, will resolve their turn as follows. First, the player whose turn it is will pick 2 dice, exactly 2 dice from that dice pool, okay, and place these dice in front of them, okay. Now there are white dice and black dice. White dice are normal, black dice are play dice. If at any point you pick one of these dice to be your dice for that turn, you will immediately have to move your time tracker by 2 spaces in clockwise direction for every black die that you have. Okay, 2 for 1 or even 4 spaces for 2 black dice if you have them. So these are black dice, they make the time go faster for you, okay? And one of your villagers will be closer to passing away. Okay, this way or the other, you will take the 2 dice, okay, and 2 dice exactly. You cannot take 1 or 3, exactly 2. And then you will take the number of those 2 dice combined. You cannot ignore any of the dice. So now I have the number 12 in front of me, and 12 exactly, no more, no less. If I want to change these results for some reason, I can spend money, 1 gold coin, to change every die face 1 higher or 1 lower. In this case, I can only go lower, so if I spend 1 gold, okay, I remove it from my money barn, I can then return this to 5 if I need 11, for example. So you can do that as many times as long as you have enough money. So that's the way to manipulate your dice results. Okay. So, I will take these dice and then I will see what I can trigger with that number. In order to perform an action in this game, you will have to take a banner. You will see that locations and components in the game all have these banners on them. Basically, the number on the banner, sorry, these are not banners, the number on the banner shows you which number or numbers you need to have on your dice combined to be able to trigger that particular action, okay? So that's the first prerequisite to do an action, to match the number of the banner of the component in the game that you want to, whose action the action of which you want to trigger, okay? So first you're going to trigger an action, but here's the rub. You can either trigger black banners or white banners, and they are different. Because if you decide to trigger a black banner, you will only be able to trigger that one action, and that's the end of your turn. If, on the other hand, you choose to trigger a white banner, you can either trigger 1 or more, as long as you have more than 1 component in the game which is triggered by the same number. So for example, here I have 11. I can trigger both of these tiles because both of them have 11 on them, okay? And on top of it all, I can also trigger the school. So basically, I can trigger these 2 tiles and the school for 1 single action because these are white banners. But if I choose to use a black banner, for example, to use this card here, I can only use that 1 banner, after which I have no actions left. Okay, so that's the difference between black and white banners. Once you have activated a banner by matching the number on it, which can either be a single number or 2 numbers divided by a slash, in which case you can use any of those 2 numbers, or even it can have a question mark, which means that it will be triggered by any dice result, okay? So once you trigger the number, then you have to pay time. Every action in this game costs time. For example, if I trigger this action here, it will cost me 1 time because underneath the number I have 1 hourglass symbol here. So I will, in that case, move my time tracker 1 step forward in the clockwise direction, and then I can do something else with that action, regardless of what it is. Now, some actions require you to pay a cost in order to be able to do it. So, for example, if I want to acquire this card, I will first have to match number 7, then pay 2 time, and then just flip it over because I don't have any additional costs. But some things will require you to pay additional costs. Let me just find something that has it. Okay, for example, if I want to acquire this monk, I will have to trigger number 12, pay it one time, and pay one scroll in order to be able to use this monk. Okay? So sometimes there's just a number and time, but sometimes you have additional costs in form of resources. That's why these crafts here are so important, because they produce those resources that you will need to trigger some other things in the game. This way or the other, when I pay all the costs, I will then resolve the immediate effect of that card. I will flip it over and place it in its corresponding section of the village and potentially receive points for that, or receive a card that I can later trigger for its effect, as it is, for example, the case with these cards here. Okay, that's how you trigger an action. As an action, you can either acquire a card and then place it in your village like this, or once the card is already in your village, you can simply trigger that card for its ability, for example, to produce these resources. Or you can trigger an action in your location in your village to do whatever that location does. And that's basically it. That's your action. Pick dice, trigger an action, pay its additional costs, resolve that action, and that's the end of your turn. At the very end of your turn, the last thing you're supposed to do is to check whether one of your villagers passes away. This will happen when this time tracker crosses this bridge where the Grim Reaper is located. Okay, this is the Grim Reaper here. Okay, so once your token passes the Grim Reaper, you will place this Grim Reaper over that token, like this, just to remind you that one of your villagers at the end of your turn will pass away. You will then finish your actions and their effects, whatever they are, after which you will return the Grim Reaper to the bridge, and then you will have to get rid of one of your villagers because they are now deceased. When that happens, you will place the marker of that villager on the graveyard on the main board. By default, you will place them on the grave belonging to their profession. If all those spaces are empty, you will then place them on an anonymous grave on the grave space. Okay? And if this happens, you will then roll this gray die, okay, and move the rat on the rat infestation token on the main board. Okay, this is the main board. You will then move this gray rat on this track according to what this gray die says, and if at any point the rat ends up here in this space, then everybody in the game will lose roughly half points rounded down from this tree here. That's why you have to save them on this house, as I explained earlier. And that's the end of your turn. If nobody dies in your village, of course, you will simply end your turn, and the next player to your left is going to get their turn to play. When there is a certain number of total number of villagers who have died, for 2 players that's 9, for 3 players that's 14, and for 4 players that's 18 villagers. And you will keep track of that here on the graveyard space. When that happens, that triggers the end of the game. Everybody who still hasn't played all their actions, their action for that particular round, will play their actions when the last player has played. That's officially the end of the game, and then you will calculate how much points you have. Whoever has them, it's these red numbers on your locations, various components, plus number of story points on this house, not on these trees, on this tree. These points here on the tree at that point are lost. They are not counted. And that's it. Whoever has most points at that moment is the winner of the game. Their village is most renowned and most prosperous. Okay? So that's it for this demonstration, boys and girls. This was long, this was complicated, but this game deserves to be explained because it's very, very fun and it's full of stuff to explain. Now, in the next section of the video, I will tell you what I think about the game. So let's do that right now. Hey people, you've seen how the game works. Now, this was a lengthy, pretty long demonstration for you, but you will agree that this guy simply has too much in it, and I just couldn't bring myself to leave anything important out of this demonstration. This is not a how to play video, but I've explained quite a bit about this game. Now, since this video will already be way too long, even for me, for my standards, I'm just going to try and keep my excitement about this game to a bare minimum. So I'm going to start right away. I absolutely love this game, okay? When I say love, I really mean I'm ecstatic about this game, okay? Definitely, you know, one of the best Euro games that I have played, okay? And it's wonderful. Because as always, I keep repeating this, you know, I think you guys are bored of me saying this over and over again, but I really adore games which give me a lot of different stuff to do. Many tactical possibilities, many strategic pathways that I can choose, and this is definitely one of those games. Because you have these different areas of your village, and you know, you cannot possibly you know, do all of those things. You know, if you try to travel and do trades and serve customers and build a church and fields and everything, if you try to do it all, you will certainly lose the game. You need to choose your path. You need to build your engine. This game has a lot of engine building in it, and I love it. You have to combine those areas of your village and those cards, those locations and abilities that you put in your village to make them work together and create a prosperous village that will create this beautiful engine that will create those points for you, okay? So tactical, strategic thinking and path which you will take is wonderful, wonderful. Not to mention how beautiful this game looks. The artwork, the illustrations, beautiful. The amount of components in the box, those wooden markers, everything is great. Okay, great about this game. It's beautiful, good component quality, great component quality actually, plays beautifully, makes a wonderful, wonderful playing experience, absolutely wonderful. So I've said wonderful way too many times, I know, but I'm really excited about this game, so you'll have to forgive all the mistakes that I make as I'm speaking, okay? Beautiful game in every respect. It's not too long either, compared to all the things you get to do here. Not too long either, from my personal point of view. Now, the only thing that may bother some of you guys is that this is more or less a multiplayer solitaire, because everybody's playing their own game, but I really don't mind, because the task that I have in front of me is so exciting. I don't even mind that player interaction in this game is very minimal. I don't care, you know. So absolutely wonderful playing experience. I could say a lot about this game, but I don't want to make this video too long, so you'll just have to bear with me, and you know, I'm trying to shorten this as much as I possibly can. This game has my absolute recommendation, okay? I will even go as far as to say that most of you guys will like this game. Even those of you guys who are not typical Eurogame players will probably love this game, okay? That's it. I could be speaking more, but this video will be way too long, so I'm just going to leave you with my warm recommendation for this game. It has 2 thumbs up from me. Absolutely recommend it. Check it out before you buy, of course, but I'm certain most of you guys are going to like it. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing. You guys are great. You know, leave your comments if you want to. Just play nicely. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, goodbye.